This message is brought to you by North Ringwood Uniting Church, a God-focused, grace-filled community helping you grow. We hope you enjoy.
So, before everyone takes a seat, I'm going to get everyone to take one row forward. Come one row forward, everyone. I can't come any closer to you. No, you can leave the posters there, sorry. If you want to go 2 rows forward, as long as you don't push anyone out of a seat, Andy, that will be more than fine. I'm going to take a drink. Yep, excellent. I'm coming through. Fantastic. I don't know about you, but sometimes giving is hard. Sometimes it hurts. You give your time, your talents. Excuse me, I've got a runny nose. I'm not actually crying. Perhaps your treasures. And things don't turn out the way you want, or the way you'd like, or the way you would envision. You give of yourself and you give all of yourself, and yet there's no return on reward, or something like that. And it's from within this challenge that I'm here to talk to you about generosity, how to give. And I'm going to start with a story from the Old Testament, the OG of the Bible. And of all the figures in the New Testament, few would be more well known than Moses, animated by DreamWorks. Here's a man who was significant enough that he appeared centuries after his death at the transfiguration of Jesus. And we read in the Gospel of Matthew that just then appeared before them the disciples, Moses and Elijah. Undoubtedly, Moses was a man of God, a flawed man like all men, but one who gave his life and his livelihood as an Egyptian prince to serve God. But even Moses didn't see the fullness of the fruit of his giving to God. Many of you may remember that Moses was called to deliver the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt and to deliver the Israelites to the Promised Land. And yet, as we read in Deuteronomy 34, and it is a bit small on the screen, so my apologies. Then Moses climbed to Mount Nebo, from the plains of Moab to the top of Pisgah, across from Jericho. There the Lord showed him the whole land, and then it talks about the land. And then the Lord said to him, "This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you will not cross over into it." And Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in Moab, as the Lord had said. And if that's not a morbid start to a sermon, I don't know what is. We don't always see the fruit of our giving to God, but he calls us to put our faith in him, our faith in his promise of goodness. Let's pray. Lord, I pray that the words I speak tonight, I pray that they may be of you, they may be good, and that they may challenge people to see your will for their lives. Lord, I pray that your will may be done in this place and in our community. Amen. So before I begin talking about how we give, it's important to talk about why we give. Thankfully, Matt spoke on this last week, and I'd encourage you to, if you weren't here, to check out his sermon. It's on YouTube and on our website, I think. So, to summarise what Matt spoke about last week. Matt spoke about us being generous with our time, about being generous with our talents, and about being generous with our treasures. And I think the illustration that stuck with me most from Matt's sermon last week was the one where a father and son were mowing the lawns. And that's not a picture of me and my dad, because I don't think I ever got out mowing the lawns with him. And the son's 3 or 4 years old. The dad doesn't need his son's help, but he delights in the shared relationship. While the son loves his dad and wants to be just like him and wants to help. I am tearing up now, that's awful. Excuse me. And we see this in the Bible as well, when Jesus first calls his disciples. Now, this is Jesus. He doesn't need disciples. I think we can all agree with that. Jesus can do God's will without the help of any of his disciples. And yet, as Jesus walks along the beach and sees two fishermen named Simon and Andrew, he says to them, "Come, follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people." God doesn't call us and expect us to stay where we are. He calls us to follow him and to serve him. Which leads us to tonight. How can we give? I'll cover the physical aspects of giving towards the end, because I believe that our attitude towards giving is what God really seeks. He doesn't want grand gestures of big noting ourselves, and we see this in the Bible. So, how should we give? And tonight I'm going to talk to you about the fact that we should be giving with humility, we should be giving fully, and we should be giving for God's glory. And we should be giving like this because, frankly, God doesn't need your money. He doesn't need it. This is the God who, with a word, spoke the earth into being. This is the God who made the universe. And if you truly believe that, regardless of whether it was 7 days, 7 hours, or 700,000 years, the only logical conclusion of a God who's able to make the universe, he doesn't need your money. So if you take nothing else away from tonight, and I hope you do take more than just this, God doesn't need your money. So my first point, giving with humility. What does that mean, that we should give with humility? And that's a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to answer that. I'm going to try guide us through it. So can I get a show of hands first of all? Who remembers having Father's Day or Mother's Day stalls at primary school? Excellent, fantastic. For those of you who don't remember those, or perhaps that wasn't a thing back when you were that age, what happens is the Parents Association gets a few stands together and you can buy some gifts for your parents' special day. And this is how it goes. You wake up in the morning and your parents give you their money, maybe $5, $10, $20. I think one of my friends had $50 once, ridiculous. Anyway, so your parents give you their money. And you go to the school that they're paying for with a lunch that they probably made and with a uniform on that they paid for. Perhaps you may see where this is going. And so with this uniform that they paid for, with the lunch in your lunchbox that they made, at the school that they paid for, with their money, you buy your parents a gift. It's a crappy gift. I can't think of any of the Father's or Mother's Day stores that my parents still have. Whether it be a steering wheel clock or some plastic multi-tool piece of garbage. And yet, your father or mother that received the gift receive it with great joy, despite not needing it, because you brought the gift to them in joy, wanting to please them with the gift. God wants us to give in such a way that we recognize that he doesn't need our money. He delights in our giving to him. In lowering our own importance, in giving God gifts, we raise his importance up. We say, not mine, but yours. And in the wonderful book of James, legitimately one of my favourite books of the Bible, ironic given I'm talking at the moment about humility, we can read in chapter 4. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. By giving with humility, we acknowledge that we have no control over what even happens tomorrow. We acknowledge that God is the one in control. And if he's in control, then he'll take away all my uni assignments. So, give with humility. Secondly, give fully and give faithfully. Some of you might be worried tonight that I'm going to tell you how much you should be giving to the church. I'm not. It's not up to me, that's between you and God. Whether it be your time, your talents, or your money, that's between you and your Creator. Now, I'm not going to tell you how much you should give, but I'm going to tell you it's probably everything you think and a little bit more. This is a picture of C.S. Lewis. Many of you will know him as the author of the Chronicles of Narnia. Some of you may know him as one of the best friends of the author of Lord of the Rings. He was also a theologian, and I'd encourage you, if you're going to read any of his books, don't read Narnia. He's got some fantastic, really fantastic theological books. Anyway, C.S. Lewis is quoted as saying, and before I lose my voice, I'm going to get someone else to read it out. Matt, you can read it out. You're sitting at the front. Well done.
C.S. Lewis. I do not believe one can settle how much we ought to give. I am afraid the only safe rule is to give more than we can spend. In other words, if our expenditure on comforts, luxuries, amusements, etc. is up to the standard common among those with the same income as our own, we are probably giving away too little. If our charities do not at all pinch or hamper us, I should say they are too small. There ought to be things we should like to do and cannot do because our charitable expenditure excludes them. All right. I'm going to read that again.
Thank you, Rachel. Not because it was read poorly or anything, but because this is important. I do not believe one can settle how much we ought to give. I'm sure that's terrible. No, that's all right. That's readable. I am afraid the only safe rule is to give more than we can spare. In other words, if our expenditure on comforts, luxuries, amusements and the like is up to the standard common among those with the same income as our own, we are probably giving away too little. If our charities do not at all pinch or hamper us, I should say they are too small. There ought to be things we should like to do and cannot do because our charitable expenditure excludes them. Now, I'll be honest for a moment. I have spent a lot of money on computers, camera gear, and technology. That distinctly comes under that category of luxuries and amusements. 4K monitor, mechanical keyboard, and a heap of parts which will mean nothing to most of you, so I'm going to skip past them. And for anyone watching this online and has paused at that slide and is criticising my part choice, just don't. Giving is an area I need to work on, and it's an area I need to continue to work on. I recently received my annual bonus from Bunnings, where I work, and perhaps you also got yours recently. Firstly, well done, another year, bit of extra cash. Secondly, what are you spending it on? I know as soon as I received mine that I was going, ooh, I could buy this, that, or the other, or whatever it may have been. Whereas I should have been faithfully, prayerfully, and fully giving control of that over to God. About 11 years ago, should be a familiar building, this church underwent a massive building project where we expanded our capacity for ministry and mission in this church. And it included a stewardship campaign where we needed to raise something in the order of about $400,000 more than people would normally have given. And so the call went out. It was really quite a big campaign. A call went out for people to sacrifice, such that the church here could grow. And I distinctly remember hearing that because it was at a time where there was some new computer game that I wanted. Doesn't matter what it was, I couldn't tell you what it was. But at the time, that was important to me. And I had a choice. I had a choice between putting my hard-saved money, which was just pocket money at the time, towards a new computer game, or I could put it towards the church. I don't remember what the computer game was, but I remember the satisfaction of giving up control of that opportunity and giving that money to God's church. And I want to be clear, it's not just about money. Time too. The band here had to sacrifice their afternoon to rehearse. Matt had to lose a couple of games of PUBG with me so that he could rehearse this evening, such that you may all enjoy worship to 100%. The guys up the back, Jacob in the booth, have to give up their worship experience each week so that you all have the opportunity to worship God fully. Giving should be a sacrifice. And sometimes sacrifices hurt. It's why we don't want people serving all the time. And now, I need another show of hands for those people who have had the fortunate pleasure of playing a sport with me at some point, whether it be netball, soccer, maybe something at state youth games. So, for those of you who have endured that time with me, first of all, thank you and well done. But you'll also know the attitude that I take to my admittedly low-level sport. I don't walk off the court, pitch, or finish the run with anything left in the tank. And I didn't put a picture up of me having finished that run for that very reason. It's probably the only similarity I have to any professional athletes. Because if you've ever watched a competition or game, whether it be physical or electronic, they don't finish with anything left in the tank. They put in 100%. And then once they don't, the coach pulls them up on it. I was going to have a video at this point of some AFL coaches getting angry, but there were too many obscenities for me to be comfortable using that in church. The coach calls people out who don't put in 100% because the coach expects 100%. Now, I'm sure I don't need to ask which is more important to you, a game of football or your life. And what is God calling your 100% to be? And in fact, Paul's letter to the church in Corinth says this: "Do you not know that in a race, all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the game goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever." And my prayer is that you may run for the prize. Run for the crown that lasts forever. And we're going to watch a video in just a moment. Matt showed it a few months ago. And as we watch it, I want you to think about where your priorities are. Are you storing treasures, talents, and memories on this earth that will fade away? Or are you storing riches in heaven? If I click that.
Imagine this rope. Okay, pretend this rope just goes on forever. Now imagine that this rope is a timeline of your existence. You just exist forever. You see this red part? This would represent your time on earth. You've got a few short years here on earth, and then you've got all of eternity somewhere else. And what blows me away is some of you, all you think about is this red part. It's all you think about. You're consumed with this. You go, oh man, I can't wait till here. You know, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to save so I can really enjoy this part right here. And you're consumed with that. And you're thinking, oh man, am I going to get to travel? Am I going to eat well? Am I going to do this during this part? And I'm like, are you kidding me? What about this? What about all this stuff? That's just, it's crazy to me because the Bible teaches that what I do during this little red part determines how I'm going to exist for millions and millions and millions of years forever. And so why would I spend this little red part trying to make myself as comfortable as possible, enjoying myself as much as I can? Paul says, look, I'm going to live my life for this mission. I'm going to spend my life, invest my life for this moment when I cross that finish line. See, I'm going to forget about all this stuff I could enjoy, and I'm not going to look around. I'm going to be like a runner, just looking at that moment when I face God, because when I face Him, then I don't get this chance over again. We get one chance at this life on earth, and it can end at any second for any of us. We've got one chance at this, and then comes eternity. And you see, people look at some of my decisions and go, oh, you're so stupid because that's going to really affect this. I go, no, you're stupid because that's going to affect all of this. Man, I'm serious. I look at the way people live and I go, wow, that is so crazy. You are so crazy. You're going to do that right now, just to enjoy right now, not even knowing if you have tomorrow, and you think that's smart and that I'm dumb.
Give fully and give faithfully. Don't leave yourself wondering what could have been. So, We're currently 2/3 of the way there, the home stretch. So if I've lost you, now's the time to wake up and look like you've been paying attention. My final point is, give for glory. And I have to clarify this before I get thrown out for heresy. Don't give for your own glory. When we give, we should be giving for God's glory above all else. Actually, you know what? Scrap that. Our lives, our everything, should be for God's glory above all else. Because when God is glorified, all of nature, all of heaven, rejoices at the sound. And on this front, I actually think the book of Revelation, at the end of the Bible, I think that book gets a bad rap. Although it's a text that describes what people would often call the end times. The purpose of Revelation is the revealing of God's glory. It's in the name, Revelation. And the final chapters of Revelation describe the paradise to which God's faithful are promised, where his glory reigns forevermore, and there is eternal joy. Glorifying God reveals him to the world. It opens a little window to that kingdom. Revealing God's glory brings people joy, brings nature joy, brings God joy. And we recently completed a series on kings. I think it was titled Game of Thrones. And again, I would encourage you, if you weren't around for that, to watch it online. Gee, I'm plugging a lot online at the moment. And one of the kings mentioned in this series was King David. And to sell him ridiculously short of David and Goliath fame, did a lot of other things. Now, King David, one of the other things he did was build the temple of God, the place where God would reside for the Israelites. And when he was building this temple for the Lord, he praised God and said, "Praise be to you, Lord, the God of our father Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power, and the glory and the majesty and the splendor. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hands are the strength and power to exalt and give strength to all. Now, our God, we give you thanks and praise your glorious name." David had it. He had the right idea. In saying, everything in heaven and earth is yours. We give you thanks and praise your glorious name. Yours is the greatness and power and glory and majesty and splendor. And our words, our time, and our actions are for the glory of God. And I'm reminded, when I'm speaking to you tonight, of the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. I'm sure you're all vaguely familiar with it. Jesus had a massive following. It was 5,000 men, so there were another, say, 5,000, so women and children, so 10,000. Jesus had a following of about 10,000. A crowd who were following him. He was healing them and teaching to them. When suddenly it gets to the end of the day and they're all hungry, they're all tired, and they're not near home. If you ask me, it was an event that was fairly poorly planned, but can you blame them for wanting to sit and speak and hear God speak? So Jesus has 10,000 hungry people with him, and so what can God do but pull out a miracle? And there's this little boy who's come prepared with 5 small loaves and 2 small fish. This is the sort of kid who doesn't leave home without a spare roll of toilet paper in his backpack, just in case. Anyway, this little boy has his dinner with him. He needs food just as much as the 5 or 10,000. But he gives it up for the glory of God. And in that moment, God is glorified. That little boy would have been well justified saying to the 10,000 other people there, "Not a chance. I brought my food, and while you're all off at the shops getting your dinner, I'm going to have a great old chat with Jesus. If you didn't come prepared, that's on you." But in giving up of his treasure, God was able to glorify it. Are you willing, and I mean that, are you willing to put your faith in the God who controls all things, and therein lose some control over your life and give it to Christ? How should we give? We should give with humility. We should give fully and faithfully, and we should give in a way that glorifies God. My final point is this, and it circles back to my first point. God does not need your money. God did not send Jesus to this earth because the Israelites weren't putting enough money in the offering bowl. Jesus didn't come and die on a cross because the temple needed more audio and DP operators. Jesus Christ came to this earth and gave his life as a sacrifice so that God could be glorified through your righted relationship with him. He doesn't need your money, but he wants you. And his invitation is that we follow him and use the gifts he has given us for his glory. So how will you respond when he says, "Come and follow me"? Let's pray. God, I thank you that you are the God of the universe. It's such an easy sentence to say, Lord, an easy thing to pray, that you are the God of all things. But Lord, I pray that we may live our lives in the faith that you are the God of the universe, the God who made and gave everything. May we learn to give back to you fully, in humility and for your eternal glory. Amen. So we're going to have a time of reflection now. And in a moment, I'm going to get you to spread yourselves out amongst this space. There's lots of room, and I want you to move yourself away from any distractions and away from any temptations to distract others. Underneath all your seats is 3 post-it notes. And I want you to write down how you're going to faithfully give back to God. There are 3 post-it notes because you don't have to give back in a way that's necessarily financial. There's a post-it note for time, talents, and treasures. And I want you to write on at least one of them. How is God calling you to give? Is it in a band, the tech desk at the back? Is it serving on a beach mission or at a homeless shelter? Is it passing the Red Sea and leading his people to a promised land? I'm not going to dictate how you can give. I want you to listen to God's calling. How can you be generous with your time, talents, and treasures? So regardless of where you are in your walk with God, whether this is the first time you've heard someone speak of him or you're a theological scholar with decades under your belt, I want you to think about what is holding you back from getting closer to God. What do you need to give over to him such that you can draw closer? Are you stuck serving two masters? Or are you using your talents for his glory? Are you spending time with his people? Are you acknowledging your treasures as rightfully his? And look, if you're not sure how you can give at North Ringwood, or giving God glory is something that's new to you, I'd love to have a chat after the service. And I understand for some of you, I'm a bit unapproachable, so you're more than welcome to have a chat with any of the leaders in this space. Thanks, Jen. That's really great. So, as Matt comes up and he's gonna have a little bit of a fiddle for us, spread yourselves out, and we're gonna have a time of reflection with God, and then the band will invite us all to join back in and worship him with "Be Still."